hand, touched the leper, and said to him, I do will it. Be made clean. The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. Then he said to him, see that you tell no one anything, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That will be proof for them. The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Often in reading the Old Testament, when Israel strayed immorally from the Lord, that God would often have another nation punish it for its immorality. This took place over and over again in the book of Judges, and now it takes place with regard to the house of Eli, who was a priest and judge who ruled Israel for 40 years. As we mentioned the other day, Eli could not control his sons. Such as parents today, many cannot control their children. And Phinehas and Hophni were guilty of two sins. One, greed. Whenever meat was brought to the temple to be sacrificed, they always chose the choice pieces of meat rather than have them sacrificed to God. It's called greed. The second sin of Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, was lust. In imitation of the Canaanite religion, they brought prostitutes into the sanctuary and engaged in immoral fornication. So we can see that the priesthood was rapidly declining morally. And again, when something like that happens, God always steps in to wake people up. And so it was that the Philistines, the nation of people that had settled in the southwestern part of Palestine along the Mediterranean coast, they were chosen by God to punish Israel for its corruption of the priesthood. And so we have these two battles. In the first battle, the Israelites were defeated, and they said to themselves, well, maybe the reason why we were defeated is because we didn't have the Ark of the Covenant with us. Now that Ark of the Covenant was an oblong box made of acacia wood in which contained the two tablets of the Ten Commandments, a replica of the manna which they had eaten in the desert, and the rod of Aaron. And so they thought all we needed to do now was bring this symbol of the presence of God into the battlefield, and we would win. Much like many of us, perhaps today, who rely on the externals of religion, but do not have a religious heart. Again, I can remember the Monsignor in Des Moines that said in the Second Vatican Council, we moved furniture all over the place, but we didn't move our hearts that we should have. The problem was not the absence of the Ark of the Covenant. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the immorality of the priesthood and of the people. That was the problem. And it was the same thing in the New Testament. Remember, Jesus chided the scribes and Pharisees for making the temple a den of thieves. They thought they could get by with whatever they wanted because they had the temple as a front for their thievery. And so it is that the defeat is even worse. The second time, the ark is captured by the Philistines, and Hophni and Phinehas are killed. The prophecy was given that eventually the house of Eli would fall, and it did. And when word of the capture of the ark was brought to Eli, and the death of his two corrupt sons, he fell faint and died himself, and thus ended the corruption of the house of Eli, so that now the house of Samuel would rise. In the gospel today, we see you might say, a microcosm of our redemption. The leper represents the human race. All of us are spiritual lepers by sin. And the leper approaches Jesus and sees him as not only a healer, but God himself. Lord, if you can, Kyrios. Lord, if you can cure me, if you will it. Notice the humility of the leper. In other words, he's leaving it up to the Lord to whether or not to cure him or not. And Jesus says, stay low, I do will it. Be cured, be cleansed. And the reason why he has the leper go to the priest in Jerusalem is he wants to make sure that they declare him clean with all of the prescriptions, offering of the bird, for example. And there was about 8 days of ritual that he had to go through. He wanted to make sure that the priests in Jerusalem declared him clean before it was mentioned that Jesus had cured him, so that the priests in Jerusalem would be a witness to the power of Jesus. We really see in the gospel today the foreshadowing of the sacrament of penance, the cleansing of our sins. But we also are warned by the first reading that we must never make sacraments a magic, or the Mass a magic, or anything in religion, a magic that gives us an excuse to live however we want. The person who goes to Mass on Sunday and lives a life of sin the rest of the week because they have put in their 45 or 55 minutes on Sunday. So we see now, as the Deuteronomic history continues, the house of Eli has fallen, the corruption of the priesthood has been punished,